Oh, another live. Mr. Bass is doing something somewhere else. He could be next door to Hank. He could live next door to Hank right now, for all I know.
Yeah.
But today we have a special Mr. Bass Get Your Fish On show with the champ, the champ, the back-to-back champion, Hank Cherry. And we're really happy to have him here. Before we get started, let me just give him his due. 2013 Angler of the Year. Rookie of the Year. Excuse me. Sorry.
And he almost won the Classic that year, too.
4 first places, 2 Classic wins. Sponsors include Picasso Bass Cat. I hope I have all these right, by the way. Abu Garcia, Mercury Garmin, Bass Mafia, Berkeley, Power Pole, Trilene Fusion, TH Marine, Warrior's Journey, Pro Angler Hub, and Elite Angler. He is a stud. A stud. I hope you don't mind me saying that, brother. He is Hank Cherry. How are you, man?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. It's a little rainy, a little stormy here. Getting ready tomorrow to go do some on-the-water coverage for bass. The opens here at Lake Norman. I'm not fishing, but I have a lot of friends fishing. So looking forward to that, and hopefully one of them wins it.
Nice. I'm going to let the first question go to Mr. Bass, as normally I don't let that happen, since I have been told I talk too much.
Hank, man, it's a real honor to have you. I am blown away with your success to win classics back-to-back. Only 4 anglers have ever done it in the history of the Classic, and just an amazing accomplishment. But you almost won the Classic in 2013 also, didn't you?
Yeah, I came real close, really about 5 feet away, probably.
Yeah, I think some of our guys
5 feet away from number 3.
Some of our guys watching don't realize that you had the winning fish on, basically. It just didn't make it into the boat.
No, it's just one of those things that just that day definitely did not go my way. It was actually a miracle day, the way things started happening. And there were not just that fish, there were other key losses throughout that day. But to be able to keep fighting through at that point with that kind of stress and pressure and never been there before, just to have that opportunity was a good thing. I mean, looking back, sure, I would like to have it and know that I had 3 now, but I think that kind of lit a fire and just progressed over the years. And then, when it was my time, it was my time, and it was my time twice. So maybe it'll be my time 3 times, 4 times, who knows?
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Oh, yeah. I think about it, and when I try not to think about it, people like my wife and my friends, they all remind me, you could be the first one to win it 3 times in a row. So
you could.
Nobody's putting any pressure on me, but it's that thought's still there in the back of my head every day.
So Ken Duke and I say getting to the Classic is one of the hardest things to do. But when you get there, because the field isn't gigantic, it could be one of the easier tournaments to win. Is there any truth to that at all, or is Ken just crazy?
No, I mean, once you cut the field size down, you free fish up. People don't understand what I mean by that, but you're opening up some places that there would be boats occupying normally. But it's just a different venue. It's a different feel. It's different than the way we fish any other tournament throughout the year, because there's no points. We're all fishing for first place. And so you kind of just got to take a really good educated guess, because the way the practice schedule is, it's so spread out that it's very, very hard to dial in on a specific pattern. And very rarely does it hold up the whole way. But you pick your best pitch and you go throw it for those first 2 days, and hopefully after the first, second day, you find yourself in the top 50% of the field with a chance to win on the 3rd day.
Yeah.
So, Hank, I wanted to ask you, we had Jacob Wheeler on a few weeks ago, and, he's on this crazy tear where he won 3 tournaments this year, plus Angler of the Year. And we asked him before going into the final tournament, are you nervous? Do you feel any pressure? And he said, I don't feel any pressure at all. He said, I feel super relaxed and calm. He says, I felt that way a lot this year. And I thought, man, I got to ask Hank this question when we get him on. How do you deal with pressure? Because to me, I would think going into your second classic, was there more pressure, or were you off the hook? Did you not feel pressure at all, or and how do you handle pressure? Because this tournament fishing thing is such a huge mental game. I mean, the mental part of it to me, and I'm nothing compared to you. I just do small little tournaments and stuff, but the head games, the stuff that gets in your mind, that has nothing to do with your ability to catch fish, is really something to deal with.
The pressure in the second one was nothing like the first one. It's hard to explain until you're in that situation. But I knew after the first one that going into the second one, especially having 2 really good days to begin with, that I had been there before. I knew what was in store the next day. I knew the crowds. I knew I was just going to have to deal and control what was in my control and block everything else out. And I knew some of the other guys that were in contention hadn't really had that experience, so I knew I had that leg up. But I really didn't have any pressure because I said it before. Winning 1 was my dream. It never went past 1 and 1. And then to have the opportunity to win 2, I even asked my wife after the first one. I was like, what was it, about a month, I guess? I'm sitting around. She's like, what's wrong with you? I was like, I don't know what I do now. I mean, I've caught the spirit. I've caught this thing I've been chasing my whole life, and what do you do? And then through us talking and working out, you go win another one. And then so now I've got 2. To win a third one would be a huge step. And I don't know, that's uncharted territory because nobody's ever won 3 in a row. But just to know that I can go in there and look at those trophies and see that, I'm one of 36 guys, I think, that's ever won the thing, and to have won it twice, that in itself is a fulfilled life. And I've said it before again, and I'll say it again right here. If I don't ever catch another bass, I've got those 2 trophies to prove that I was good enough to do it on those 6 days.
So just out of curiosity, because I have 2 questions. First off, where are the trophies right now? Are they like in a separate room, or do you just like if, to be honest, I put them someplace where every time someone walked in, they saw it, and I could just go, yeah, that's right, that's me.
Well, see, we're in the process of all this memorabilia that we've collected and some pictures my wife got me, and a framed jersey and some baits and magazine covers to go in one section of the house. But we've had some hiccups along the way with getting that involved. So right now, you could say I probably have the 2 coolest end tables you could ever have, because one's got one on one end of the furniture. You go to the other side of the room, and it's on the other end. So they're kind of my bookends in the living room.
So sorry to interrupt here. So on the first 2 years ago when you win the Classic, you had 2 good days. You're going into the 3rd day. Did you have the flotilla of boats? Did that have any effect on your fishing? And did you find the fish? I mean, did you pattern them for the 3rd day? Did you save fish for that 3rd day, if that makes any sense?
I wasn't really saving anything. I just knew there was a bunch of fish that had been overlooked. I didn't really know how many were there until the midway through that 2nd day. The 3rd day just started off slower, but I knew in my head the wind was supposed to pick up. We had a full moon. I needed to get out of the sky. So there were a lot of things bouncing around in my head about leave and come back. But I kept telling myself just to stay calm, stay there. They're going to bite. And then throughout the day, it picked up. And then by lunch, I had caught enough fish to win the tournament.
At lunch, when you caught that 5th one, brought that one, did you just say, I've got this. My dream is coming true? And did that have any effect on the rest of the day, or were you overly excited, or what went through your mind as that whole process happened?
No, I kept convincing myself as I would go up throughout that day, and even when I caught that last big one, that I needed to catch one more, that I needed one more. I mean, I had myself convinced the whole day that I would be trailing, that I needed one more, which, dealing with the numbers and the weights, somebody would have had to have a better day than I had the first day to come back and beat me. So, it was just, I wasn't trying to be satisfied. I didn't want to stop. It was the last day, and I wanted to make sure I gave it everything I had just in case I didn't win.
So normally when I start these, and everyone's asking where Mr. Bass went, he has bad connections, and if he comes back, it's all right. If not, it's you and I. Oh, here he goes. There he is again. Tell me how you got introduced into the outdoors. How did you get your craving and love for fishing and hunting and everything else?
Well, my dad and my great grandmother introduced me at a very early age, catching trout, just going to the pond or down to Lake Wiley here in South Carolina and fishing for bluegill, just something where I could get a bite. The bass fishing thing just came naturally, I guess, from my dad. He kind of created a monster. It really took over my life from a young age, and it's all I wanted to do. It's all I wanted to do. It got so bad to a point where everybody was telling me, when I told them I was going to be a professional bass fisherman someday, they were telling me, you can't do that. It's a pipe dream, whatever, this, that, and the other, the whole story. But it's been there from the beginning. And the hunting thing kind of happened in high school with one of my good friends, Bill Abbey. He introduced me to deer hunting, and that was another thing that I took just a huge liking to. And it's been something that I've got to share with my family. My wife enjoys it. My son enjoys it. So all that stuff, what it did in the long run, I guess, and God's way of letting me know, is it kept me out of a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
It really did.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mr. Bass?
One thing I wanted to ask you, Hank, is it seems like the jerkbait has been your friend for quite a while. And I was surprised when you won on Guntersville to see you throwing a jerkbait, and probably just because of my lack of experience. But I've fished Guntersville multiple times. Not once have I ever even taken a jerkbait to Guntersville. And there were the other thing that impressed or surprised me was it wasn't a huge secret that you were doing that, but nobody else was really throwing a jerkbait, were they?
Not really. When you go to Guntersville, you think of the grass, and everybody tries to pattern them really in the grass. And the first day, I got really blessed and lucky, and I caught some really big ones in the grass. I just knew the way the weather was, and it not going to warm up. There were no more coming. What I caught up there was what was up there. So, and I just knew from the riprap and the history of the causeways at Guntersville and the lack of attention that Browns Creek Causeway was getting, and the history of it having so many big fish around it, it just made sense to capitalize it there. You know, the Classic this year, everybody talks about the jerkbait. Well, you wouldn't expect that in Texas, the time of year. It's hot, it's 100 degrees outside, the lake's flooded, every bush is underwater in the lake. But they had such a cold year, and the lake froze over, that 6-8 foot down around that dam, the water temperature had stayed really cold. So it allowed fish to stay out there a little longer. Now, they were leaving as the tournament was going on, but they stayed long enough for me to capitalize on.
So as far as jerkbait fishing goes, I know when the water gets cold, I break out my jerkbaits, and I know all about that. What do you look for on bodies of water and in times of year when it's not typical jerkbait weather? What do you look for that tells you this would be a good time, a good place, a good area to throw a jerkbait?
If I see, like on flats, I see a lot of shad activity, that's the first thing that's going to key me into it, because they're kind of high in the water column. If I see smaller fish schooling on top, I'll throw the jerkbait to get below the school. But it's really just one of those things you have to just kind of play with. I mean, now I can say that I've caught them in water as cold as 30 degrees, and I've caught them in water as warm as 89 degrees, and everywhere in the water column. It's not something that's going to work all the time, but I really think when fish are in that, say, 6 to 15 foot range and they're feeding on shad, that it's definitely something you can throw and have the opportunity to catch a fish or two that you wouldn't have caught doing something else.
Our boy Booster asks, which lake would you like to defend on, Guntersville or Ray Roberts?
Guntersville, 100%.
What makes Guntersville so much, in your opinion, better than Ray Roberts?
I don't think it's better. It's just that my history at Guntersville is very, very good. I understand the lake, and God's full of big ones. I mean, I liked Ray Roberts, and Guntersville's only 6 hours from the house, so it's a much easier drive.
Yeah.
I think Guntersville really just sets up 365 days a year. Sets up better for the way I like to fish than Ray Roberts. But now, saying that, I've never seen Ray Roberts at normal level, so I don't even know what it looks like.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Rath. Sorry.
I got one more jerkbait question for you. I just am curious. I know you're a Berkeley guy and you're an Abu guy. What's your setup for? I mean, what's your jerkbait of choice, and what's your rod to reel, your line? What do you break out when you're fishing a jerkbait?
Well, now we've just released the Stunna. It's the bait I was throwing at the Classic this year. It's one that I put a lot of input in that we got designed and got out in a hurry. It's a really good bait, so I like to throw it. Typically, I throw my jerkbait on 12 to 15 pound fluorocarbon. I use 100% fluorocarbon trilene. That's a little heavy for most people. I just am very confident that I don't think the line really changed the action of the bait. And with that bigger line, I think I can drive the hooks into them a little deeper. I can fight them a little harder because I've just got this thing in my head. The longer they stay in the water and they're not in the boat, the better chance they got of getting away. And then I kind of battle that. This year I spent a lot of time throwing a 610 winch rod that was made for a jerkbait, specifically made for that technique. And I switched on and off of my reels from the STX 7.3-to-1 to the Zeta 7.1-to-1. Both those are excellent reels. The gear ratio, because of the spool size, isn't that much difference. But I prefer the higher speed reel when I'm throwing jerkbait just so I can take up line faster. The rod action is like a medium moderate, so it's got a little more bend to it. So there again, it kind of counterbalances that heavier line for fighting the fish. And I just feel like with that maximum bend in the rod, that I can torque them a little harder and get them to the boat. Whereas if it's a fast tip, I got to worry about them kicking and throwing the bait.
We've talked to everybody we've had on lately about this forward-facing sonar and how it has changed the game. What are your thoughts on, has it hurt the fishing? Has it helped the fishing? What are your thoughts on what's going on with all this new technology we've run into the last few years?
Oh, I love my Garmin. My live scope is basically my eyeballs under the water. I haven't used, now I've been with Garmin 3 years. I haven't used 2D traditional sonar now in 3 years. I mean, I might have it on occasionally, but I don't believe it. Like that forward-facing sonar, what it tells you, it's like watching TV. What it shows you is there. Now, you can't always catch what's there, which ends up hurting people, but I think it definitely shows you what's there. I always wonder is how far are the electronic companies going to take it before the fishing industry says, okay, this is enough. Because it's really, really, I mean, if it says there's a tree there, there's a tree there. If it says there's a rock there, it's a rock. If there's 5 fish there, you see 5 fish. But all that said, you still got to learn to use it just like anything else. And you can spend a lot of time using it and not be able to get those fish to bite and waste your day away. So I think it's good. I just don't know what the end game is going to be. But I enjoy mine.
Yeah, I think everyone enjoys it. My question, though, is has it gone so far that, I mean, they're really expensive, and rightfully so. But has it gone so far that it takes out some of the, not the fun of catching fish, because it probably makes it fun because you're actually going to catch fish. But does it take away some of that old strategic plan that anglers used to use, when we first met 10 years ago or whatever?
I don't think it does. I just think it's the game has changed and everything's evolving with the game. I mean, because back then they used to use the maximum horsepower in your motor was a 150. Now we're running 250s.
Yeah.
Size of the motor, the horsepower. I never thought that I would think about a trolling motor in terms of horsepower, but some of the trolling motors today can just jerk your boat around. You can go 5 miles an hour, 6 miles an hour with a trolling motor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where it'll stop, but I think the younger generation is enamored with all this new stuff coming out in technology. And those are the guys that are doing all the studying and learning, and they're coming out of college and coming to fish the opens and coming to fish with us with this learning curve that's really been cut short because they have this vast knowledge on the internet. So, you know, it's a job, and if it makes me better at my job, that's what I'm going to use. And like I said, I've been with Garmin now 3 years. It's a great company. Their product, I think, is absolutely the best. And I've won 2 classics using it. So
yeah,
I'm definitely not going to say anything bad about it because I really, really like it.
Yeah, yeah. And that makes sense. I mean, really, 2 classics is everybody dreams of winning the classic. Mr. Bass, sorry.
With forward-facing sonar, what do you look for? You know, if I get a brand new one and turn it on and hit the lake for the first time, what am I supposed to be looking for looking at that thing?
Well, you know, hold on a second. We just got messed up. There we are. The first thing I did when I got it was I took it to something that I knew. Like I said, okay, let's go look at a bridge column. And then I lined it up to look at a bridge column. And then I said, okay, I know where this brush pile. I'm going to go look at a brush pile. So once I did that, the biggest thing or the biggest issue I think with forward-facing sonar that people have to overcome is they have to be able to learn to throw into the cone. What I mean by that is how the transducer shoots out ahead of you. You got to be able to land your bait in it. And every boat is a little different because it's a little different on the trolling motor shaft. But once you do that, then you get to kind of learn, which is cool, is you'll learn, well, I found this brush pile that I happen to ride across the 2D. I'm looking at it, saw it on my side image, watch spin around. Now I can put the trolling motor down the water and I can look at that brush pile. And by the time of the year it is and what's going on, I can give you a pretty good educated guess. Well, hey, that's all crappie in there. Or there's a couple of bass, there's a big catfish. You can get that detailed with it. And the more you start to learn about fish seasonally and how they go, it really, really cuts your practice time down. Like in the grass, you may figure out, hey, they're an 8 foot and they're in the eelgrass, and you've caught a couple on a trap or a chatterbait or whatever you're throwing, and you run to the next area and you put it down, you just scan around out there in 8 foot and you see some dots up in the grass, but you pretty much know they're bass. I don't have to cast at those fish to know what they are. I just mark a spot and I can keep on moving. So it's that alone has allowed me to practice a lot without even having to cast, which is pretty cool too.
Wow. Our boy Booster had a great, this is right in here. Do the new electronics force you to scan rather than fish during practice?
Well, I tell you something that I do. Like if I think fish are on points, I will not scan the point. I'll pull up, put my trolling motor over, and I scan it with my forward-facing sonar. I will not drive over anything anymore. I don't do that anymore. That's just something that I've gotten used to. I can see everything that's there. It doesn't take me very long. Now, if I'm running over something in the river channel or something, I might slow down, turn around, and look at it again. But as far as places that I think I'm going to fish, I don't run them over anymore because I think with all the electronics these days and all the pinging that you will run fish off looking at stuff and then spin around and trying to fish it. So I spend a lot of time doing that.
That was one of the things I noticed years ago when remember when the Berkeley gulps came out. So
yeah.
I redfished. So the Berkeley gulps came out for years. For the first, we got them like really early, but for like the first 2 years, you could cast behind a redfish and that redfish would smell it, turn around and attack it. But after about 2 years, you would make that perfect casting either in front or wherever, and out of nowhere, that fish would start to turn off of it.
Mm-hmm.
With the pinging going on and everybody doing it, do you think at some point in time that's going to affect the bass and that they're going to feel the pressure and move off, or is it just something they just aren't feeling at all?
I've definitely seen instances where like I could shoot a brush pile and cast my bait to the fish, and I'm watching it go down, and they kind of go off my screen. And I've done that a couple of times, and then the same day I'll find them on there, and once I see them and I know my cast, I turn away from it and make that cast, and I've gotten them to bite. Where I noticed it a lot was springtime, catching crappie when they're way up under the docks and you're shooting a jig way up under there. You catch 4 or 5 or 6, and then all of a sudden the school breaks up. Now, traditionally, did they do that before when I couldn't see them? You know, I don't know. I just know that the group starts to spread out after you've been there a little bit.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you this question that Wilmer put on the screen here.
Okay,
how does the Stunna perform compared to the Vision 110?
Making the bait, the first thing that I said I did not want to do, because I have so much respect for the guys over there at Megabass, is I didn't want to build the same bait. And what I say by that, it was, there's no need for us to build a Megabass if we can go buy, if people can go buy a Megabass, I can go get a Megabass. So I want to build something different. I kind of took, with the help of Dan Spangler at Berkeley, we kind of took my thoughts on the best baits in the industry for jerk baiting and tried to combine them all into one. And that was my vision. That was the way we planned it. It took several different give and take, because this is all during COVID. So all this is on Zoom calls and emails and look at this bait in the tank, this, that, and the other. But we hit it. I think we hit it out the park. It's a bait that not only myself, other people have been successful with. The colors are good. The hooks are good. It's ready to fish right out of the pack. It's something that I'm proud of. And I think it's going to be around for a while, and I think people are going to catch fish on it.
How long was the process to do all of it? Was it, I mean, I've seen lure companies and lure people, and it's not an easy process to start a bait, try to make it better than others, and do that. But how long was the whole overall process? How many tweaks also did you go through once you got your first sample to fish?
It was pretty cool, because the first baits I got 3 of them with 3 different bill angles, 3 different bill styles, 3 different weights. And I lowered it down to 2 and said, I kind of want in between this, but I like this bill and this bait. And the second time I got them back, one of the 3, I was like, this is the one. And they even said it usually doesn't happen that way, but I took it down the dock. I caught it's like the second cast I made with it. It was just a clear bait with a little red on the back of it. Just wanted to see the action. I caught like a 3-pounder.
Nice.
I was like, yeah, this is the one. So that's how it all started. And we got them as over here as fast as we could get them. Tried to make and take our time, because, you know, a lot of that happens and you have success with the bait and the quality control falls down, and then none of the baits are the same. So we did the best. We did the best we possibly could to get them over here with the same quality, the same bait that I threw at the Classic. We all wanted to be the same thing. So we didn't want to have a secret, like I'm throwing this special bait nobody else can buy, but here, buy this bait. That's not what we wanted. It's the same bait that I have. I take it right out of the package, just like everybody else will have the opportunity, and I fish it right out of the package.
Nice. I like to hear that. So you have the new bait come out. How hard is it to not share that bait with like your friends or your other competitors? One of the things I think is really funny about when you know you cover the Classic or the stuff, how secretive everybody is, even though they all know the same things pretty much what's out there. But how crazy is it to try to keep something really secretive, like a new lure that you break out and start catching fish with, and that nobody else has seen? How tough is it to keep it a secret?
Pretty hard for me, because I wanted people to see it, just because, and you know, I was pretty proud of it. I'd waited a while to have it built. There were a couple of colors that I didn't want seen, but now they're out and the cat's out of the bag, so I'm not really worried about that. I'm just happy to be a part of something that's going to put pleasure in other people, and they're going to get the joy doing the same thing that I've been enjoyed doing for the last 20 years, and that's catching fish on a jerkbait.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a perfect segue, Hank. Steve and I have this ongoing argument that we ask everybody we interview, does color really matter in fishing?
Okay, in most instances, I will tell you, color makes the stores look pretty and catches fishermen.
Whoa.
90% of the time.
This is why we're friends.
He hasn't got to part B. He hasn't got to the second part.
90% of the time. There are certain seasonal things that happen where I think color is super important. Like in the spring with the reds and the chartreuses and things like that. I think that's very important. But I think you could draw the line at it. And I make this comment all the time when I'm talking to my son or when I'm talking to really anybody when they're talking about colors. I was like, those bluegill don't swim under that dock and change colors. They're pretty much green, a little blue to them, a little brown. Colors that appear in nature catch fish. Now, there are things like pink worms that'll catch fish. Yeah. I mean, like the biggest mystery to me is still the floating worm comes around, you pull it out in April, you throw it in the lake and fish eat it. And they're like, all of a sudden the pink worms start falling from the sky. Something, I don't know why they eat it. And then it gets a little warmer and it's gone. The theory on that, I think, is a lot of fish when they're colder, I think it affects their eyesight. Some of them may stay deeper. So as they progress towards the warmer months and they get towards the sun, those reds and pinks and bright yellows, they stick out. So I think color most of the time catches fishermen more than it catches fish, but definitely throughout the year, there are certain times where certain colors outperform others.
Yeah, we had one fisherman.
I'll be honest. Go ahead. Sorry, dude.
I was just going to say we had one fisherman that we asked, and he said when it comes to soft plastics, he doesn't think color really matters, but when it comes to hard baits, he's a little more picky about the color.
Yes and no. I mean, like pretty much when I throw soft plastics, it's either green pumpkin, watermelon, or black and blue. So there's three. Those are all colors that are going to occur in nature on the bottom of something they feed on. Mm-hmm. Same thing with the jig. I don't carry 10,000 colored jigs. It's a green pumpkin, maybe with a green pumpkin with some blue flash in it, and a black and blue. That's just what I carry. But once again, those colors keep reoccurring in the food chain in nature all the time.
I'm going to ask a couple of questions from people that are online. Booster asked another great question. I don't know if you can see this. How does Hank think he will approach the Classic at Hartwell next year or this year?
I've had a lot of success there. I'll try to block history out and go figure out what's going on at that point in time. I'm sure I'll be looking for a herring bite, so it'll be fish out in the open water, hopefully. That's going on. If not, I hope the whole lake is red and 10 feet low, and so I'll throw a crankbait the whole time. But other than that, I'm just going to really try to enjoy this one, enjoy what I've accomplished, and perhaps win my third in a row.
Yeah, that would be unbelievable. Kyle asks, Hank, if you could add one new lake to the schedule for next year, where would it be, why, and how would you fish it?
Cayuga Lake up in New York, because it is absolutely 100% some of the best fishing I've ever done. And I'd like to go like late June, early July, so I could throw my crankbait over the top of the grass and watch them eat it on my live scope.
Looking at next year's schedule, what are your thoughts? I mean, it's a lot of the same places, but that one lake, Iowa or something?
Ohio. Yeah, I kind of hesitant about going back there. Last time I was there, I separated my shoulder riding in the waves because the water was so rough.
Really?
Yeah, so I'll get some revenge there. But I think this year's schedule, you're going to see a lot of big weight tournaments. They're going to happen real fast. I mean, they're all going to be piled in there. The Classic won't be huge weight, but St. John's, Harris Chain, Santee, and then Chickamauga all together, all four of those are going to be monstrous weights. And then Lake Fork, I mean, there's not going to be any there's no freebies this year at all.
Do you like the schedule like that, or would you rather have it tougher fishing, all pared down a little bit?
It is what it is. I mean, I've got to play on whatever field they put me on. I definitely would like to have a few spotted bass fisheries thrown in there from time to time, but I understand it's a business and they have to go where the money is, so I understand that. But there are definitely worse places we can go. So I'm just looking forward to getting back out there. Like this year, it all happened so fast and it was crammed in and done. And so I'm looking forward to getting back at it.
St. John's is always one of those, if you can find the grass, it's good, but you're hitting it at the right time. And then you come from St. John's, which is going to be, when you come to Harris, it's going to be a completely different fishery because with the just how much more grass and everything we have at there compared to the St. John's. So it'll be a lot of fun. I'm going to go to Mr. Bass. Sorry to take your time.
No problem. Hey, Hank, I read an article about when you were at the Classic, and they mentioned a decompression room, and I was like, what is a decompression room? I never heard of that before.
It's basically when you get done, they've given you the trophy, your wife gets your flowers, all the confettis come down, you've been around the loop in the arena. When you get off, it's you and your family, like some close friends, a couple sponsors. They take you into this room to where there's no press, there's nobody, there's just some water, some Coke, whatever. It's just a quiet room where you can just kind of just reflect on what just happened. It's a good place. It's a good place. It's a good place to visit. I can tell you that. It is, but it's just a place where you kind of go and just you take deep breath before the roller coaster ride that's getting ready to start happens for the next 48 hours.
And let me just jump in there as somebody who's covered the Classic for years. As soon as you win, every media person, and there's like 400 sometimes at the Classic, instantly needs to talk to you and ask some of the dumbest questions on the face of the earth. Correct?
That's true.
I went in one like 2 or 3 years ago at the Classic. I don't even know the guy's name. He was an amateur. He won like a Bass Nation, and on day 2 he just killed it. And every time he talked, he was like, "I got to give praise to God and this," and it was really wonderful. And then here's stupid Steve raise his hand, and I just said, "So how does it feel to kick all these guys' asses for one day?" And he lit up and had the best time after that. But it is the pressure. Is there a lot of pressure? Do you feel a lot of pressure from the media side when you start doing really well at the Classic and other tournaments?
Not really. I think I've just over the past 9 years, I've just dealt with about everybody, and I've dealt with positive, I've dealt with negative, and I don't worry about it. They're just doing their job. I'll help them the best I can, and if it's not something that I really want to deal with or I've got a problem with, my wife has no problem taking over from that point.
I love that. I love that. Because to be honest, you're a great ambassador as a Classic champion. You're a great, and I don't want to say anybody in particular, but there's been a couple duds not in the last 10 years that won the Classic, and you're just like, they don't have the media presence. They don't want to do media. But you have always been open. I've seen you on Luke. I think I heard your wife on Luke one time, if I'm correct. And other places. And you promoting the sport is wonderful, and you're a great ambassador, right? You should already know that.
Thank you. That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
So, Hank, what is the Warrior's journey?
Oh man, the Warrior's journey. I should let you tell how all this began because you just said.
Jacqueline, come in here.
There you go. Come here. You can tell the Warrior's journey.
Hello.
Hi. It's good to see you, by the way.
No, the Warrior's Journey is actually something that I travel for my job, and I was coming back from a trip from Pacific Northwest. Flew into Atlanta, and my team, the Carolina Tar Heels, were playing the Kentucky Wildcats in basketball, which is my favorite sport.
Yeah, mine too.
And walked into a place to have a burger and ended up meeting them. And these two just incredible gentlemen, we sparked a conversation. Come to find it, they hand coins over to me, and they are chaplains for the U.S. Army. And basically their company is the Warrior's Journey, and they are literally, the best way that I can put it, it's almost like it's a one-stop shop. If you are a veteran, whether you're active military, a family member, veteran, retired military, you basically can go here to find anywhere from a church all the way to extensive like PTSD, suicidal,
marriage counseling.
My company that I work for, Movement Mortgage, just signed on with them to assist in housing. Nothing better than a VA mortgage right now, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like a one-stop shop. Like, what do you need help with? I can help you. I can find you a resource. And it's in the Kevin Weaver and Chad Yates. Those guys their hearts are just full for the military and our passion. One of our passions is the military. So that's what the Warrior's Journey is. It's a great organization.
Yeah, that's awesome. Everyone, I guess it's on warriorsjourney.com.
Warriorsjourney.org.
.org. Everyone should go there and check it out and make sure they have free homes, or they've had Matthew said, or free homes for veterans too. So that's even better. That's awesome.
Other times they do a lot of different events and stuff like that. But there's a lot of resources that they have for you.
That's awesome. Everyone needs to go check that out for sure.
Yes.
For sure. Thank you. There's a bunch of people that have stuff, but Derek wanted to say thank you. I guess you must have signed his hat. You signed an LTF hat with Thrift and Matt.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that was when we did the show. We signed one for him. Yeah.
And there was one other thing. I'm trying to find it, but maybe I lost it already. Oh, here you go, Hank. What is your thoughts on next year's schedule? Do you enjoy season? Oh, we already said this. The same lakes. Would you prefer more like a variety instead of the same places? It seems like we go every year.
I would prefer some change, but it's limited now because it's become a production and people don't quite understand this. It's still limited to where they can go get the camera service because there's other things involved now than just the going fishing aspect of it. But I think there are things in the work to be able to make us go other places here in the near future, new technology.
Yeah, yeah.
What about the number of tournaments? Do you think you would like more tournaments on the circuit or less, or about like what's there?
I would like more. I don't know that I'm in the minority or majority with that, but I definitely would like more.
Huh.
Do you feel like when you have more tournaments and you get on like a routine that you fish better? Is that why, or is it just because it's a better chance of winning and making more money?
I just like bass fishing is my career, so I like fishing any chance I get, and I really would just like to fish more tournaments. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with like one a month. Because basically right now, it's not that I don't work when I'm not fishing, but I enjoy the fishing work a lot better than the other work.
Do you ever fish the opens or anything like that?
I did before, but I haven't in a while. It's just coming through there and knowing how hard a road it is to get to where I'm at, that I let those guys go at it. I feel for them. I wouldn't want to have to come back to the opens the way I did. I just wouldn't. Now, there might be a time where I get in one here or there just to maybe get the dust off the rods, especially early in the year. But typically I've got so much other family stuff that I really don't want to miss. And this time of year in springtime, we're gone a lot. And with baseball, like I said, now softball with my daughter, I'd like to be here as much as I can for that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. would you like to see the tournaments like next year? The tournaments actually kind of go later in the year for the first time in a long time. Would you like to see some September, October, November tournaments too?
Oh, I wish we had that last year when it ran. I think next year it's over in August again.
Yeah,
I like fall fishing. I really, really enjoy fall fishing. I'd much rather fish in the fall than I would around the spawn. I hate fishing for spawning fish. They're just so irritable. I think it's because you're messing with all women and they're just hard to get along with sometimes.
The best answer of all time.
But no, I like fall fishing. I do. Their own bait and they're roaming around. They're typically the weights are a little lower, but I just enjoy the challenge. But I mean, I'll go wherever the schedule takes me.
Yeah.
So on your Facebook, you posted a question just recently. Late summer, where to fish, shallow or offshore? And my thought was, well, what would you prefer? Shallow or offshore, and why?
It's probably half and half for me. I like the top water bite this time of year, especially late in the summer. You can get some pretty good explosive bites, but where I live, predominantly spotted bass roam, and you can really catch some good ones out there in that 25, 30 foot of water on a drop shot and things like that. So I'm kind of a half and half guy.
Did when you were growing up, did you fish that whole spectrum? You will go from a jerkbait, now you're fishing drop shots and stuff. Is there one part of your repertoire of fishing that you've had to work on over the years so that you can become more of a well-rounded angler?
The jerkbait was something that I just developed on my own, I guess. My dad, when he was teaching me, I learned like most other people with a plastic worm. And ironically, I probably haven't thrown a Texas rig plastic worm in I don't know when. It's been a long time, but I think everything I've done, all the techniques that I use now, have just kind of evolved. There was a while in the tournament trail where we fished a ton of TVA lakes and a lot of cranking and offshore fishing was done. So you didn't hear a lot about the power fishing up close and up on the bank and this, that, and the other. So I think I've just been one of those guys that I've always tried in my career to do something different than everybody else was doing and maybe not fish as fishy of places as everybody else. Because in my mind, if I'm fishing somewhere that's not as good as there's 20 boats fishing, but the fish in my area are only seeing my bait, I have a better chance at doing successful.
Technique. The little B asks, technique Mr. Cherry hates to throw.
I don't know. A shaky head's probably the one thing I hate to throw.
Is it just the slowness of it, or
I fish so fast most of the time I can't get it to the bottom. I mean, and I tell people this all the time. We go smallmouth fishing, and I'm like Ned rig stupid because I can't catch a smallmouth on a Ned rig.
Right here.
I don't think I can let it get to the bottom long enough.
I, for some reason, have a reel. Well, I'm in Florida, so I don't do much Ned rig, and I take a lot of grief about it. I don't think people realize that we live in a fishbowl down here, a bathtub, and we don't get real deep waters. But at the same time, I can throw a worm, an 8-inch worm, or a wacky ringed worm like no other, and it's just what I do. Sorry, Mr. Bass, your turn.
Okay, Hank, I love Picasso lures. And
me too. Shock blade.
Yeah, I love that shock blade. I noticed you're sponsored by them. What's your favorite Picasso lure and why?
We got so many. I mean, I'm pretty fond of my jig, the Dock Rocket. It's pretty cool. It's got titanium weed guard, so it doesn't have a typical brush weed guard like traditional jigs. But I've won so much money off that bait. It skips really well. It comes through trees good. Comes through bushes good. I mean, so if I had to pick one, it would be that. I mean, the Shock Blade Pro is probably the second, and then there's a Shock Blade coming that's not quite in the market yet, or it might have already hit. I don't know. It's close, but it's got like the computer board chip lip on it instead of a metal bit. It's got the
Oh,
same
yeah.
crankbait. It's got a totally different vibration. I used it last year at St. John's. I caught a couple big ones on it. No problem. Those 3 baits probably the best, I think.
I don't think that new one's come out yet. As
Close. I promise. Yeah. It's got, I forgot what they call it, stuff, Lexa board, or it's got some kind of name. But it's just like the same kind of stuff they build, like homemade square bills and stuff. I have wooded plugs, have that computer board lip.
Yeah.
It's going to have a computer board blade. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I love chatterbait fishing. I love chatterbait fishing. And that shock blade is, I think, an underrated lure. I don't think people, I think everyone, I love the jackhammer too, I'll be honest. I love the jackhammer. But I'll be brutally honest. That shock blade is an exceptional lure. It is an exceptional lure that has the vibration it puts out and how fast it starts. And you can put a trailer on it, but it does work really well without a trailer. Where, no offense to the jackhammer, without a trailer on the jackhammer, that thing's like everywhere. You never know where it's going.
Yeah.
But that shock blade, bro, is a fantastic, fantastic lure. I'm going to give it back to Mr. Bass there.
Hank, Chris wants to ask you about your involvement with the original chatterbait.
God, it goes back. It was just a Byram General Store. I can't remember how many years ago. Ron was in the store. First time I'd ever met him. He said, "I have a bait I want you boys to try." We were just kids. So we tried this thing. The first time I tied it on, I was like, "This is stupid. It's like harder than a spinner bait. It's just, I don't know about it." And then once we figured out the power in the bait, there was a time where we would help deliver the baits to the stores, the local stores, but we would buy them all when they got there so nobody could get any of them. But the original one, the one Ron made out of his house, that original bait will never be duplicated. It's head and shoulders better than a jackhammer. I mean, that style bait with that blade, they have their patent. They'll never, ever make one better than the original one. No chance, 100%. It was the way it hit the head, the way the blade was put in there. It didn't last as long because it would waller its way out and the blade would come off. But by far, hands down, that was the best one ever made.
I just wrote an article for Coastal Angler about chatterbaits, and that was one of the things I had read, that when the first original chatterbaits would come out, all the pros or all the guys that were nearby selling them would buy them out, so no normal angler had a chance to get them because they were that good when they first came out.
Oh, I was just a normal kid at that time, but I knew how special it was, so I just cleared the rack off.
I love that.
From my own heart. That's cool.
Have you started to, because you've had good success at Hartwell already, and do you start now looking at the Classic for next year, or do you like looking at like online stuff, not the normal stuff you can do? I won't look at that.
I won't do any looking or anything for Hartwell. I'll start when it cools off, probably around November. I'll start just riding down there a day at a time, just to go ride around. Probably won't fish, just to re-see the lake and just graph. But I try not to get. I try to do my best not to get too worked up or too jacked up about it. I just try to treat it like it's another event and just enjoy it. I mean, that's the one thing that I've really come. This will be my 7th one in 9 years, and I've really come to learn. I've been at the bottom of it, the tournament, and I've almost won the tournament, and I've won the thing twice. So I just know how special it is to be there, and I just really want to make sure that I don't let the pressure of the situation take away from the enjoyment of it.
How hard will it be to not go back to the tendencies that you've had at Hartwell, at going to the same places? Do you try to hit those places up, or do you try to find some new spots at the same time?
I definitely won't hit them up, but just because else fails, I know where I'm going to go. So, I mean, I've been there so much that time of year. If all else fails, I know where I'm going to go. So it's in my best interest just to go with an open mind and act like I'm just seeing it for the first time.
Yeah.
Cool. One thing I wanted to ask you is, you kind of have a reputation of being someone that mentors young anglers or young up and comers that are trying to make it in the sport. And what would be your advice to a young man or woman who says the same thing that you said your whole life, which I'm going to be a professional angler. I'm going to be a professional angler. What's it take for a person to achieve that kind of a dream?
If you're going to do this, like, first thing I'm going to tell you is you can't be afraid to fail, because I mean, it doesn't matter. Even if you make it, you're still going to fail. We're all going to fail from time to time. That's just part of the journey. That's just part of the tour you have and the track you have to take to get there. I can tell you that I heard today something. I was listening to a motivational stuff while I was waiting. I think it was my son was in the tennis chair, and something Matthew McConaughey said at a commencement speech he was doing. He was like, you know, you always hear these people say, you can go do this, but make sure you have something to fall back on. Mm-hmm. And he said, you know, that's really the dumbest thing I've ever heard, because if I'm going to fall, I want to fall forward. You know, I want to fall forward so I can see where I'm going. You fall backwards, you don't know what's behind you. Nobody wants to move that direction. Mm-hmm. So I would tell people, and I tell them now, I was like, first thing is, excuses only sound good to the people that make them up. And there is no try. There is no if. There is no when. The key word that they need to concentrate on is how. If you're in your mind, you think, I want to be a professional bass angler. How do I get there? How do I get to this point? That's putting things in motion. That's turning dreams into reality. You write those things down, and then it's solid. It's concrete. You hear people all the time sit around, they talk, and they say, well, if I had such and such as money, or when I get here, that's just all rubbish. Anybody can say that. If you set a direction with how, then you have a course. You stay on the course. If that's what you want to do, don't let anyone tell you you can't. You know, you're going to be the one that sets the controls on your path, and you're the one that has to answer to yourself. You don't have to answer to anybody else in this life until you're responsible for kids or a spouse or whatever. So my best advice is, whatever you choose to do, you be the best. You be the best at whatever that is. If you want to fish, be the best that you can do. Your best might not be Hank Cherry's best, or Kevin Van Dam's best, or Gerald Swindle's best. You want to be a librarian, you want to be a garbage man, whatever you want to be. That's what I tell my kids, and I tell the people I talk to. You just make sure you give it 100%.
Would you like to see either of your children be a professional angler?
How good is Christian fishing?
Christian loves it, but I truly hope he follows his passion for baseball before he takes his turn. But he really, really loves fishing, so I would not deter it. I just want to make sure that he looks at all options before he chooses this road. I won't steer him one way or another, because I'm just not that with him. And he wanted to learn to play golf, so we let him play golf. So it's kind of what he chooses, but eventually, I mean, that'll be his path. He can't walk my path, and I'm not going to walk his. He's going to take every step. Now, I'll be there with him to make sure that if he falls, he doesn't fall too hard. I can be there to pick him up, but at the same time, he's an incredible young man, and I expect big things out of him.
That's great. I love that.
Awesome.
Chris Flay asks, please ask Hank why so many great anglers come from North Carolina. The competition made you all better anglers. Is that right?
Pretty much, because most of the lakes around here suck. The truth. I mean, you got to go from where I live. They do. You got to go to the eastern part of the state to get to where the fishing's pretty good. But I mean, if you can catch fish with the crowd that we grew up around and as many anglers as you had to compete against that were already professionals, we're fishing against them growing up at 17, 18, 19, 20. So the learning curve was out the window. When we showed up, we had to fish against whoever was there that day. And it could have been anybody from Jason Quinn to Hank Parker to Guy Aker. I mean, to household names, and they're in the tournament. And then on top of that, the fishing is not real good. Lake Norman, I still remember when it took it would take 8 pounds to win a tournament.
Oh.
Every weekend, it seemed like.
Wow.
Fishing is better than that now, but it was just the lakes we had around here. If you could catch them here, you could catch them anywhere. And you see these guys, and we all grew up fishing against each other. I mean, myself, Brian Thrift, Andy Montgomery, Matt Airy, Shane LaHue, Shane Lineberg, the list goes on and on. Like all those guys, you would see that same list every Saturday at the boat ramp, ready to fish the Saturday morning Wildcat. So we all learn from beating up on each other. That's the truth.
Go ahead.
One thing I was going to ask you is, and you kind of touched on a little bit when you were talking about color, and the fact that there's a lot of different techniques out there. If you're not fishing professionally, I'm just a guy. I love to fish for fun. It's almost overwhelming when you walk in the tackle store. There are so many freaking lures, and you were talking about a lot of these colors are designed to catch the fisherman, and I totally agree with that. But how do you simplify it? I just want to go out and have fun, but I want to catch fish every time I go out, and I know that's not reasonable. Sometimes that's just not going to happen. But what are the handful of techniques that really ought to just put in my back pocket and really try to master those before I start getting into swim bait fishing, glide baits, all these other crazy things that are out there that are incredibly expensive. And it seems like, man, every time you turn around, there's something new. What's that handful of techniques that a new guy needs to try to work on first?
I'd probably just go top to bottom. Three things if I had to have, I would have probably like a smaller to mid-sized Chopo or Whopper Plopper, something that's loud across the water, that's not a lot of effort, easy to cast, throw it a long way, just reel it back and forth to get to see it. So when they bite it, you get to see the bite. So all that's pretty cool. And then I'd have to have some kind of shock blade or chatterbait with just a regular curly tail grub for a trailer, because you could use it everywhere. You catch saltwater fish, bass on it, whatever. And then just an old fashioned, some worm weights, worm hooks, and pack of generals or a pack of Cincos or a pack of 8-inch ribbon tail worms. That's all you really need, I think, to cover the spectrum anywhere you go, and just learn to do those three things. And then if you eventually, once you've learned, crank a chatterbait through cover or a shock blade through grass, whatever it is, you can translate that over to throwing a trap or a square bill or whatever. So they all kind of relate. If you can fish a worm, you can fish a jig. I wouldn't get caught up in every single technique there was, but if you had those three, could master those three. If you can throw a Chopo, you could throw a buzzbait. So, that's the way I would approach it.
Yeah, I agree. There was a question up here. Let me see if I can find it. If you could change, I don't know, Mr. Cherry is in charge for professional fishing for one day. What does he change or do first?
If I was in charge of professional fishing for one day, I would have an A and a B plan. I would have one, all the professionals as of right now would be under one league. In part B, I would be out. I would get us a sponsor that would cover our entry fees. I think if I could do that, then that would be something accomplished.
Sorry, Mr. Bass, I've got to go.
Go ahead.
My head's now exploding. Do you think there's ever going to be a time where we can take the elites and Major League Fishing and combine them? And if so, do you think that now we're 3 years after this, that we're finally over some of there were a lot of people not happy with it. They were upset with what Major League Fishing did. To each his own. But do you think we could ever come back and actually make it one combined thing? And if we couldn't, wouldn't it be really killer to make some high entry tournament? Say Toyota and Mercury's in charge of it. Some that sponsored both groups, and high dollar, and say we're going to put the 10 best guys from Elites against the 10 best guys from Major League Fishing, and then the 10 best guys from maybe NPFL or whoever. Could that ever happen too?
Oh, it could happen. Now, I don't think you're going to see I don't think you're ever going to see the two join or come back together, because there's some that embrace change that don't embrace change. And here's the deal with fishing. All right. Now, this is going to sound harsh, but it's the truth. Like, you can't fish professionally the rest of your life if you're not competitive. I mean, that's just my thing. Like, when I'm not being competitive anymore, like I've told my buddies, my wife, hey, just hit me on the back of the head. You've had a good run. It's time to go. So there's always new kids coming around. There's always going to be the new kids in the block coming. And so you have to do that. That's every sport. Like, people can't say they don't watch baseball anymore because Babe Ruth's not playing. Okay? I mean, that's just the way sports evolve. So I think you have egos and attitudes that are never going to allow that to happen. As far as the two having futures, well, that's just going to really depend on ownership of MLF and ownership of Bass, and continue to go in the right direction. Now, is there enough room to hold the third one with NPFL? I don't know. I mean, they have some good guys over there. They have some good talent, especially running behind the scenes and on the cameras and all that. They have pretty good backing. How all the anglers are going to work out in all this, I don't know. But I do think that there is an opportunity to where you could get that crowd together. You could have that big money tournament. But then again, putting it together, you would have to have Entity A, Entity B, and Entity C all in the same place together, and there's that ego thing again. And there are some huge egos in the bass fishing world. I mean, like monsters. So, would I like to see it? Yeah. I mean, in my eyes, I'd like to see it, and I'd like to see it like the top 30 from each.
Yeah.
Hey, let's go at it.
I would.
But then again,
love that.
what rules do you use? What format do you fish? Do we do 5? Do we do as many? Is it a pound? Is it a pound and a half? Is it 2 pounds? I mean, so it's like, it's not like American League and National League when we have a World Series. It's just not that. It's not that simple.
We're letting the pitchers hit.
Yeah. So I mean, it just depends. But what I like to see, yeah, because I have a lot of friends that fish the other ones.
Yeah.
So it's to each their own. But I do think within the next couple of years, you will see some kind of quote unquote world championship, league championship, whatever you want to call it. I think you'll see that before too long.
I like this. This has made me very happy. Very happy. Because quite honestly, when Major League Fishing started, that year was kind of really odd to go cover you guys at St. John's when you're down here in Florida, and then I'm over on Toho covering them, and you can't say, when I'm with y'all, I can't say Major League Fishing. When I'm with Major League Fishing, I can't say Bassmaster.
Yeah.
And everyone came from Bassmaster. So why can we not talk about this kind of stuff? It's finally seemed like it's gotten a little bit better, but then there's always someone that's poking the bear, and the bear needs to take a swipe.
Yeah.
And let's hope. I'm gonna give it to you because I Mr. Bass, I could blow up here.
Okay, one thing I wanted to get your opinion on. I'm a Bass Cat guy. I know you're sponsored by Bass Cat, and I love my Cougar. But last few years, man, the 10 boats have really been kind of taking the elites by storm, and the other pro series. You know, I know Rick Pierce. I heard him in an interview, and he said that they've looked at it and run the numbers every which way they can, and that it just doesn't make sense for Bass Cat to work on a 10 boat. What's your feelings about 10 boats versus fiberglass boats?
Look, the only time I want my 10 boat and I have a CR is when I'm at the beach and I can just run it up on the shore, or oyster shells when I'm flounder fishing or red fishing. I don't want any part. I have buddies that run them, but I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't want any part of a 10 boat and 4-foot waves having to run 60 miles. I don't want nothing to do with it. Don't tell me it rides smooth. Don't tell me it rides good, because I've been in them all. I'm telling you, there are water out there that we have to go on that they don't make boats to ride on. It's just, that's fact.
Yes.
Like, I mean, you drive them better than others, but there are just conditions where you could be in a submarine and it's not going to be a fun ride. It's just how it is. But I don't want any part of a 10 boat. I do like them. I look at them a lot. I look at those express boats. I really, really like them. I think about all the stuff I could get into down at the beach and the coast in them. But as far as for what I'm doing, I really, really just don't think, I don't know if safe is the word. I just don't think I can handle it. I don't know.
I think that's understandable. I think that's
I'm not, but don't get me wrong now. I'm not putting anybody down because that's what they like. There's guys that don't like a Bass Cat. They don't like that. Well, you don't have to drive mine. I don't have to drive yours. So, I mean, that's just what opinions are.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree with you. You know, if you ever ride in big water, man, I would feel much safer in a fiberglass boat for sure. It's a more comfortable ride too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and there is something to be said to feeling safe when you're going 75 miles per hour or 80 miles per hour in a boat. I mean,
cool.
That's the God's honest truth.
Yeah.
So everyone, we're gonna let the champ go here. We really do appreciate the time, brother. It's always great to see you, and I know special thanks to your wife, and I hope Ella is killing it in softball. And what position is Christian playing, just out of curiosity?
Christian plays a little bit of second base, a lot of center field, and he pitches.
Nice. As a shortstop, I like to hear the second baseman and shortstop. They gotta
oh yeah,
see each other. So how old is he now?
He's 11.
So we're in the same. Thomas is swimming, and Christian is playing baseball, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, we just want to say thank you for the time today. Everyone, you got to make sure you go to hankcherry.com or go to @hankcherryfishing on all the social media. I'm sure we really do appreciate the time. It's great to always talk to you. Oh, I know. I had a question. How big was that bass you caught with the Bassmaster people the other day?
You talking about the one at Lay Lake?
Yeah.
I caught it with the marathon group. We called the one I took the picture of was a 5-pounder.
Yeah, it looked a lot bigger than that.
Well, we couldn't get all three of us in the camera. We were trying to get it close, but it was just a 5-pounder. I could have said 8, but it was a 5-pounder.
Yeah. Well, it's good to be honest. But everyone, go check out all his sponsors. Go like him and follow him on all the social media stuff. And he's a great ambassador to the sport and a great champion. And we're very happy and thankful for the time tonight.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We'll talk to you soon, brother.
I hope so.
3 in a row. 3 in a row, and I'll be there, and we'll do it live.
10-4.
Yeah.
Okay, dude.
Right.
Thank you very much.
See you guys.
Later, bro. I'm going to turn him off.
All right.
Dude.
How can you top that, man?
We are killing it with these things. You know that?
We are killing it, man. We are so good. It's amazing. All you gotta do is have a good guess, man. It's pretty easy.
Dude, the chats. I obviously don't get as many people watching on my channel as you do. I gotta just say that right off the bat. So there were a lot of people. There were a couple questions. I think there were a couple questions for you, Mr. Bass. Here you go. Do you see this one, Mr.? Oh no. What bait would you use if you're trying to go after those big fish over 5 pounds on your swim bait? Sorry I didn't get to that one. So just out of curiosity, can you tell us where the hell you are? How come I didn't know you were doing this?
I don't know. I thought we talked about it, but sometimes I'm clueless and don't get the info out. But several of the guys on the channel didn't know. They're talking about me being up in Wisconsin on the Mississippi River, La Crosse, Wisconsin. I'm fishing the bass, the BASS kayak tournament on Saturday, and I've never really been. About 10 years ago, I fished as a co-angler up here on a BFL, so that's a one-day tournament. I didn't do any practice, and I don't even know where we fished. I don't know. There's 3 pools up here. There's 3 pools up here, 7, 8, and 9.
I went to one of these areas.
I just rode in the boat. It was brand new. I'd never been there. I just rode in the boat and caught a few fish and had a pretty fun time. So I took a few extra days to come up here just so that I can hopefully try to figure out one of these pools and figure out what the fish are doing. And it was a fair day today. But my wife's up here. He told me when he was halfway there. Don't take it personally.
Amazingly,
That's
she and I are texting
true.
about you right now.
Not true. I gave her more notice than that.
Ah.
Oh, man. Yeah, I got the same problem at work. They're like, "What? You're leaving?"
So how is the fishing? Did you catch them?
I caught about 10 fish today.
Okay.
I didn't know if that was good or bad. And then I bumped into another kayaker that's in the tournament right at the end of the day. And I don't know him, but he has a wrapped kayak. Can you believe that? And yeah, I asked him. I said, "Do you fish many of these tournaments?" He said, "I fish all of them." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, if he fishes all of them, then he knows what he's doing." And I asked him how he did today, and he said he caught 10 fish today. So I'm on par with him.
In size?
I had 2 really nice ones, and I probably barely had 5 keepers.
Wow.
And then I probably lost. The grass up here is just everywhere. There is grass everywhere, and I don't know how many I lost in the grass. But maybe another 10, and I don't know that any of those that I lost were of any size.
What were you throwing?
I'm throwing a lot of different things, chatterbait, swim jig, all the typical things that you would fish around grass.
Yeah. I don't
know how it's going to go. I got 2 more days of practice to try to figure it out.
Well, it sounds like you're not on a bad start if you've got 10 and you lost a bunch too.
Yeah. What I don't know though is if I can repeat what I'm doing on tournament day. I don't. It's not like one of these locked in sort of patterns that are easily going to be duplicated on tournament day. Booster, yeah, this is a kayak tournament.
Yeah, he's gonna kill it. This is gonna be your tournament. I got a feeling.
All right, good.
And really, why don't we wrap your get your fish on, Mr. Bass?
Yeah,
live podcast for the thing on the. That's what should be done.
We need to do that. That's a good idea.
I was telling you,
spinnerbait. Okay, Booster, I'll break one out.
Yeah. This spinnerbaits. This is the time of year. Fall's here now. Frog fishing has picked up drastically down here, which is great. And you mean the beautiful dove that descends, the nuggets of truth.
What is she talking about now? Oh my goodness.
I was telling you, and nobody else knows this. I edit for a couple other channels, and I'm editing for a buddy, and he's got a huge channel. He does something drastically different than what we do. So we had a meeting of the minds today at his house, going over all the stuff. And he's talking to me, and I'm staring out the window, and I'm going, what is that back? Now, it's going in one ear and out the other, everything he's saying. I have no clue what we talked about that first 20 minutes. This is the God's honest truth. I'm like, what the hell? But I'm looking over there, and I'm like, is that a pond over there? And literally, my brain stopped, and I said, hey, can we go outside and look? Is there a pond right over there? And he's like, yeah, nobody ever fishes it, and it's this and that. I'm like, oh, my gosh, this is it. I'm supposed to be there in 2 weeks. I told him I'm going to be there probably an hour and a half early because I'm going to go fish for an hour and a half, and then we'll do our meeting at 12 to 3, and come home and everything will be good. But I was out there, and I saw like a 6-pounder like right there as soon as I got down there. And I was like, oh man, of course this is how it's going to be. So I'm looking forward to it.
So this dude's not a fisherman, huh? He's got access to this amazing water, and he doesn't fish.
So it isn't. So it's a little weird here in Florida. We have a lot of where they build houses, and they have to have retention ponds in those subdivisions. So sometimes you can find an established subdivision that's 10, 15, 20 years old, and you can find those retention ponds. And every retention pond, they're supposed to put bass and maybe a carp or two in there so it doesn't get stinky and all that other stuff. And this is just one of those retention ponds that's behind all of the houses that you can't even see. It's actually in a preserve. And I was, it's one of those, it was just complete luck. But like I said, all the retention ponds down here in Florida usually have bass. It's just how big are they? Are they overfished? That kind of stuff. So this is one that you couldn't even see from the road. It was behind a bunch of houses. So I got a feeling that I'm going to do really well at this little retention pond.
That's awesome. It's fun. It's hard to find a honey hole that you've only got access to it.
Say that again.
The little B on here says that he fishes in the mornings. I text my bosses.
Yeah.
I tell them I'm taking a long lunch. Well, geez, if you start in the morning and take a long lunch, I mean, that's breakfast and lunch.
Well, just out of curiosity, when is your favorite time to fish? Are you a early morning or are you a evening person?
I love fishing early morning, but I'm not a morning person. So I usually get up around 6:30 or 7 most mornings, and the nice early bite's already over. I probably only hit the lake when it was actually dark once this entire year.
Really?
In the morning, yeah.
So I was going when I used to before Topwater Johnny and I started fishing together. We would fish in the mornings, but I was going to that pond in the evenings. But I started to feel like that because the water would get too warm in the afternoon, that the fish were acting a little bit different. So that's when I started going in the mornings a little bit more. I kind of like the morning fishing better, in my opinion.
So this is interesting. I've been thinking about it since I saw it on here. I think Tom said something like, man, all I do is look at the comments and there's nothing but a ton of talk about swim baits here. We've got the best fishermen, we got the Bassmaster Classic Champion, and you guys are talking about swim baits. And I got to thinking about, he's absolutely right. But, the funny thing about these live streams is that there are two things that go on every live stream I've noticed. You have guys who make comments that are related to the show, and then you always have another group of people who literally are having their own conversation on these live streams that they may or may not have anything to do with the show. And what do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? So
I don't put those. Since I'm in charge of the comments tonight, I don't put those. I didn't put any of those comments online on the thing for what's his name to see. You and I see them, and everyone else sees them.
Yeah, right.
I understand if people can do multitask and do both do that at the same time. To each his own. You don't have to read the comments. If there's something that I feel like is pertinent, or to be honest, I was trying to put as much stuff on as I thought would work tonight. Because I was hoping that I was hoping to ask the questions that people wanted. I think you and I have talked about it in our private conversations, that we want to try to have those questions that people ask get answered, but at the same time, sometimes it can be a little overwhelming, to be honest.
Yeah, it can be. There'll be times when the comments are going so fast you can't keep track of them. But I don't really have a problem with either. I totally agree with Tom's comment. I think if you got the Bassmaster Champ on, you probably ought to focus on that. But at the same time, I'm guilty of this as well. I'll get on other live streams and I'll be chatting with the guys about different stuff, and that's kind of a fun thing about the whole process. So I'm kind of good either way, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I don't really. I think sometimes it's overwhelming to see all the stuff as good as it is. I think, though, you do have to be respectful, as Frank just said. You do have to be respectful to everybody in here. I think if you get a little nasty to somebody, don't take it personal. I have no problem. I don't want to block anybody. Having said that, I've only blocked 2 people, and I blocked somebody this week who just got overly intense about my video on monster bass, and he kept saying, well, monster bass doesn't do this, and I kept going, well, it says it right on their website, and he kept going, no, it doesn't, and I'm like, here's a screenshot, idiot. And it kept getting worse and worse and worse, and then I finally went, you want to know what, B Nuts or whatever his name is, I don't like the way this is going, and you're calling me. At one point he called me un-American, and that made no sense at all. Rick says that he only uses. Rick goes on a thing saying, "Well, I try to put as many American-made baits in the box as possible. 6 out of the 8 were from China this month. So don't tell me that, and stop believing that Rick is a god, because you're just being fed from a car salesman, and that ain't cool." So at that point in time, I finally said, you know what, dude, B Nuts, I'm blocking you. You can unsubscribe. I don't care. I don't want your ignorance and those comments affecting good people that because you can disagree with what I say. I have no problem with that. But if you're not respectful to me or respectful at all, then I'm not going to put up with that. And that's how I agree. Because I don't call anybody, I try not to call anybody names. I joke around and that kind of stuff. But as you know, that last video from Monster Bass was drastically edited.
Yeah. You were fired up. You were definitely fired up over that, and you toned it way down. And,
yes.
I think guys don't realize that, and in some ways, what's it really matter? I mean, you've got an opinion, and it's not a bad opinion. It definitely. I think that one thing guys ought to realize when it comes to Steve Chapman is you've got a history in the fishing industry where you've been involved in the lure making process personally for years and years and years. Your perspective on this kind of stuff is very different than the average Joe. And you probably get a little more riled up about it than the average Joe does as well, because of your, all the inner workings of how this stuff works. And, there may be a passing comment from someone that most of us, it would just go right by us. We wouldn't even think about it. But you key in on it. You're like, no, wait, did you see what that person said? That's not right. I absolutely know for a fact that's not right.
Yeah.
You know, so.
You know, I don't have anything negative really to say about this monster bass. I don't want to hurt. I'm not trying to hurt their business. I'm just being, from what I know, and really the crazy thing about that last video of monster bass is I had 5 lure manufacturers call me and say, bravo. It's about time someone said this. And 3 of them have been in his boxes. And, you know, I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to hurt him or his business at all. At this point in time, it isn't for me, because it isn't that I have such dislike for it, but I'm a believer, if you say something to me and you're collecting my money, you should be doing what you say. And that's where I disagree with Rick. That's it.
Well, I think what Frank's Fishing saying here is spot on, because listen, Frank, I know Frank. Frank loves monster bass products. He's very happy with them. He catches tons of fish with them. He's very, very happy with that product. And he says, look, well, it went by now, but basically he says, you know, I've got respect for Steve, regardless of what his opinion is. I still like monster bass. Here he says, I respect what you say about monster bass. Even if we don't agree, we still have respectful conversations about it and admit we are wrong, etc. And that's the way it should be. You know, we're not all going to agree on everything. To think we would is just silly. But you know, I don't hate monster bass. A lot of their products I really like. And so I'm probably not as far on the spectrum as you are, but you know, I've noticed a few things too, just like you've said, where, wait a minute, that can't be right. Or that looks a little odd, or onto 6 out of 8 lures. Well, I mean, that, you know, whether it's made in America or not really matters to some people a lot. And then some people, they don't care, you know, but here's the sad reality. If you want that box to be as cheap as possible, they all got to come from China.
Unfortunately, that is 100% right.
If you want to spend a little extra money, then you might can get some American-made stuff. But I mean, and right now, the way the economy's going, American-made stuff's just going higher, higher. I'm still a big American fan. Obviously, I want to buy as much USA products as I possibly can. But
yes, me too. It's just hard to compete with what they're doing on the lure manufacturer. Now, I know the lures that are coming from overseas are going up 15, 20%. I understand that. But here in the United States, hard baits are really tough to make here. Now, there's a few manufacturers that do soft plastics. There's a humongous soft plastic manufacturer in Jacksonville, Florida, and they do hundreds of people's soft plastics. They pour them, all sorts of stuff, like Culprit here in Claremont. I go to Claremont and I stop by the Culprit thing. They're shooting the baits in the back right there. They're 100% made in the United States. There's a really big difference in someone saying made in the USA or using the logo, because you can say you're made in the USA if you use a certain percentage of the stuff is put in the United States. But that doesn't mean that they're not using parts from China and bringing them in and making 2 or 3% of the lure. So you have to know the ins and outs of what really is going on in the industry. And I've spent a lot of time. It isn't like I've just showed up and have an opinion. There's a lot of stuff that I've dealt with. And go ahead.
Hard to compete with slave labor.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, Tex. You were right.
and have seen and done, and really, I have no problem. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. That's perfectly fine. And I enjoy being taught by, like, Booster has taught me a lot of stuff, and Texas Huntsman's giving me some information that I didn't know. There's a lot of people that have helped me become more educated on a lot of stuff, on lures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But and always continuing to learn is a great thing. But this guy was just to call someone un-American, who, I mean, I'm all American. I'm 100% all American. Tackle Webs, 100% made in the United States of America.
Awesome. Awesome.
This is part of the company I own. So,
yeah.
Hey,
Tom, we love having you on the channel, man. It's all good. It's all good.
And let me just say, Gramps is going to be out there on Monster Bass tomorrow. I wish him the best of luck.
Heck yeah. Is it tomorrow? Oh, see, tomorrow's Thursday, right? Yeah.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah, they do
someone wrote it in here.
So I'm going to be tuning into that if I get off the water in time, because that should be good.
Yeah. So what else is happening? I mean, are you uploading videos while you're up there, just out of curiosity?
No, I'm not doing squat. I am videotaping a lot of stuff. So,
oh, good.
It'll give me stuff to upload, but man, I don't have time to do anything but fish, really, and sleep.
Yeah.
So, but what do you got going on? What's going on with your channel this week?
I uploaded a video, but now that I'm here, I have zero clue which one it is.
Wow.
I don't know why. Now you got me thinking. Oh, hold on. I'll just go to my trash real fast. So I think it might be, I did a closer look of, well, you want to, first off, it's the River to Sea ICBM on Saturday. Intercontinental Ballistic Minnow.
Oh, yeah. Chase, what a... That is a turd lure, man.
I did my best on this one. I'm going to make it look better than it is. I can tell you that.
Hey, if anybody is killing it on the ICBM, put in the comments, because I need to know what the heck you're doing.
It's funny because I had, when I started doing these closer looks, doing a lot of research on how people are doing, and I called them and said, explain to me what I'm doing wrong here. And they said, well, it has 4 different ways of running. I'm like, what? There's 4 different ways to use this lure? Explain how. And then they told me, and then I went to the spring, and I'm like, I can't get anything but 1 to work. So I don't know really if there was ever 4, but it's too funny because I talk about it, and I never could figure it out.
Here's a strategy, guys. If you've got any of the ICBMs at home and you haven't used them yet, here's something you can do with them. Open the package, take the hooks off, and use the hooks on another bait, and throw the lure away.
They do have great hooks.
I love river to. I mean, there's a lot of great river. The Whopper Plopper, it's awesome. There's a lot of good river to sea products. The oh man, their swim bait. Why can I not think of it? Quick, Matthew, what's the river to sea swim bait called?
Oh, they make a good frog. I thought there was something froggish. I thought they had.
They make all kinds of good stuff, but I don't know, man. That ICBM's kind of a turd.
Frank, use it as a necklace charm. Have that thing blinging out.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so.
Oh, that's
man.
The S waiver.
Yeah, the S waiver, dude. That is not.
I can't get that to work.
The money. For the money, the S waiver may be the best swim bait on the market because it's just not very expensive, and it flat out catches fish. And if you don't believe me, go watch Tactical Bassin', man. They've caught thousands and thousands of fish on that S waiver.
Here's a. You want to? We ought to throw this out as a topic for 1 week that we don't have a guest. Best 3 lures under $8. Under $10.
That'd be fun. And then worst 3 lures.
Yes.
Yeah, let's do that. That'd be fun.
That would be fun. We can't really announce next week's person But
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be talking to his daughter tomorrow morning. And if we have the go ahead, we're going to post a week early who the person is. Graphics.
Yeah, so just think to yourself, who could be better than Hank Cherry? Who could be bigger than Hank Cherry? It's possible. There's actually someone out there.
I honestly believe it would be the biggest guest we've ever had.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Forward
think
to the underwater footage when you roll your kayak in the current. Nice. Booster wants me to roll my boat, man. Jeez. All
Good
for
to-
footage, just to try to get some good footage.
Mr. Bass just looked at the ICBM. Good to keep in your car as a defensive weapon.
Well, heck, that's what they intercontinental ballistic missile, right? That's what the ICBM is. But dude, man, I'd say that is not gonna do much to protect you, and it ain't gonna catch many fish for you either.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't want to wrap it up early, but to be honest, I really have to go to the bathroom.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. Everyone, make sure you go. Let me put this on real fast. Everyone, go to both channels. Why didn't that show up? There it is. Go to both channels. Give it a thumbs up. Subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Leave a comment. Do all of it, please.
Right on.
And I wish you the best of luck over the next couple days. I normally take us out, but why don't you take us out this week?
All right. Take a kid fishing, get your fish on, and pray that I catch some fish up here on Saturday. I could use all the help I get. See
You're
you
gonna
guys.
kill it.
Have a good one.
Yes.